Welcome to the Enhancing the Employability of Mature Workers workshop, presented by WorkSource Spokane. Prior to taking this workshop, we recommend you watch or attend our Effective Resumes, Strategic Job Search, and Interviewing workshops. The link to watch those videos will be in the description box below. To attend the live version of these workshops, visit worksourcewa.com to register. In this workshop, we will cover resumes and cover letters, interviewing, and some do's and don'ts for every aspect of your job search. The goal of this workshop is first to help you identify and overcome stereotypes and biases held by hiring managers, and secondly, to appear vibrant, energetic, and technologically savvy both in person and on paper. With the tips and tricks presented in this video, you will enhance your employability and feel more confident with your resume and interviewing skills. Before we start the course, pause here to think about some negative stereotypes you associate with the mature workforce. After you have a list, either on paper or in your mind, resume the video. There are three most common stereotypes that influence hiring managers against hiring mature workers. Many people think that mature workers are unwilling to change and are set in their ways. Others think that mature workers are intimidated by technology. And finally, lots of hiring managers erroneously think that mature workers have low energy and are slow to complete tasks. Take a moment to reflect on the list you created. Do most of your negative stereotypes fit into these categories? Just as there are stereotypes applied to job seekers, there is a common myth about the hiring decision that, once you understand it, will impact every aspect of the job search we discussed today. Most of us believe that the hiring decision is a rational, logical decision. The reality is that it is highly emotional. Yes, knowledge, skills, abilities, and experience are important, but it often comes down to a gut feeling that the hiring authority has that gives the advantage to one job seeker over another. Keep this fact in mind as we move throughout the workshop. Now that we have identified some common stereotypes, let's start with how to bust those stereotypes. We'll begin by talking about your resume and cover letter. Phrasing is everything when it comes to your resume and cover letter. Many words have certain negative connotations associated with them. Not sure what I mean? Here's an example. Let's say someone is writing their cover letter and they decide to include the phrase, dealt with. Take a moment to think of those words. Dealt with. What sort of images pop into your mind at that phrase? Most people tend to think of negative or stressful situations when hearing the phrase, dealt with. Fortunately, there are many other words that convey the same message, albeit in a more positive way. Take a second to think about the word overcome. If you heard that someone dealt with some personal setbacks, or overcame some personal setbacks, which sounds more positive to you? Of course, there are dozens of examples of this same dynamic. Really take some time to consider the words you use when talking about yourself and your history to portray yourself in the most positive light possible. Another word to avoid is seasoned. Hiring managers will automatically replace this word with old in their minds when reading your resume or cover letter. Get in touch with a career coach or friend to go over the vocabulary used in your resume and what it could say about you or your background. In both the language you use and the dates you provide, it is essential that you do not explicitly reference your age. Do your best to avoid statements such as 25 years of experience. If you do reference time, use terms such as over 10 years of experience or 7+ years of experience. Another element of a resume that could reveal your age is your email address. The email address you associate with your resume should not tell your age. This means avoiding using your birth year, words like grandparent, or similar references that could reveal your age. The best email addresses consist of a first and last name and potentially a random number, like James McGuire 8 or Patel Julia. For more tips on email addresses and internet safety, check out our Apply Now workshop, which is linked in the description box below. The dates you provide on your resume can also reveal your age. It is not necessary to write the precise year you obtained a certification or degree on your resume. You also want to prevent the hiring manager from being able to calculate your age based on the work history you provide. In most circumstances, your resume only needs to go back 10 to 15 years. If your relevant work history was many years ago, use the amount of time you performed the work rather than the actual dates in which you worked. You can use the functional or modified functional style to structure your resume. You can learn more about this type of resume in our Effective Resumes workshop, which is linked in the description box below. As a mature worker, it is very important to stress the value you can bring to your employer. Keep your resume focused on your skills and assets as an employee. Utilize quantitative statements whenever possible to set you apart from others applying for the same job. For example, stating that you manage the payroll system for a 600-employee corporation doing business in 3 states is much more powerful than simply saying you completed payroll for a large corporation. Remember to analyze the job description for what abilities the employer values and display those features prominently in your resume. Now that we've covered the basics of resumes, let's move on to some tips for the interview. If you successfully neutralize your written presence, the interview may be the first time the hiring manager realizes you are older than some of the other candidates vying for the job. Arguably, our most important piece of advice is to prepare stories to share during your interview that reinforce the information you presented in your resume. Tell stories that demonstrate your ability to learn, high energy, and familiarity with technology. Try to avoid jokes about your age, such as being bad with technology. Be sure to focus on your value during an interview and leave your age out of it. Demonstrate that you embrace change and technology through engaging stories. An easy way to remember how to tell a great story is to be a star storyteller. The ST stands for story. Detail the background and provide a context to your story. Where were you? When? What was the challenge you faced? The A stands for action. What action did you take to solve the problem? How did you solve the problem? What tools or resources did you use? And R is for results. Explain what the result of your actions were. That may sound like a lot, but after some practice, it's easy to remember. Here's an example. Let's say Claire is at an interview, and she is asked, "What has been your most significant career accomplishment?" Claire once worked for Walmart and rearranged displays in a way that was applauded by corporate. Claire would start by setting up her story. "When I worked at Walmart, I noticed that the $1 per yard fabrics were not selling. Since the price was so good, I wasn't sure why they weren't selling. So I tried changing the way the fabric was displayed. Sure enough, that was all it took, and sales increased by 200%. My managers were so ecstatic that they spread the word, and before too long, my fabric display was being implemented in thousands of Walmarts around the world." In this story, Claire clearly explains the background of her story and what actions she took to solve the problem. Then she closes the story with the results of her problem solving. After hearing this story, do you feel like Claire demonstrated her competence as an employee? What you really want to do in an interview is to convey your passion for the job. Passion speaks louder than qualification in several circumstances. Let me explain. Here is a graphical representation of the results of 4 candidate interviews. As you can see, candidates 1 and 2 both surpass the minimum qualification requirements. The hiring manager would likely disregard candidates 3 and 4 and take a closer look at the first 2 candidates. Both candidates demonstrate skill in excess of what is required, with candidate 1 having the most skill. However, candidate 1's passion is very low. On the other hand, candidate 2 does not have quite as much skill as candidate 1, but their passion far surpasses that of candidate 1. Who would you rather hire? The person who is great at their job but doesn't enjoy it? Or the person who is good at their job and loves the work they're doing? It's an easy decision for most hiring managers. In your interview, let your passion shine through in the stories you tell and the way you describe yourself. It can go a very long way in the eyes of hiring personnel. At the start of this presentation, I mentioned that hiring managers often go with a gut feeling when hiring. By telling engaging stories and showing your passion for the work you're applying for, you can tip the scales in your favor. I may have moved pretty quickly through some of those topics, so if you want to take a deeper dive, check out our Effective Resumes, Interviewing, and Strategic Job Search virtual workshops. As always, you can connect with a career coach who will provide you with one-on-one personalized assistance to spruce up your interviewing skills, give advice on your resume, and so much more. To connect to a career coach, call 509-532-3120 or email wsspokane@esd.wa.gov. The contact information is listed in the description box below, along with the links to all of our virtual workshops. Alright, so now that we've gone over resumes and interviewing, let's wrap things up with some do's and don'ts of your job search. Make sure you have done your homework and researched the company thoroughly. Use your research to target your resume, cover letter, and interview to the needs and desires of the company. When using dates on your resume, be aware of how they may demonstrate your age. Only 10 to 15 years of work history is usually necessary, and graduation dates can be left off entirely. Do wear glasses if you need them. Squinting to see something is never flattering. Be a chameleon when dressing. If you can, sneak in a visit or do some research on the company before your interview and mimic what you see others wearing. When in doubt, Have a look that is classic and understated, such as those pictured here. Be prepared with examples and stories that demonstrate your value, enthusiasm, vitality, energy, flexibility, and relevancy. As far as don'ts go, avoid making age references in your resume or interview, even as jokes. Don't wear perfume, cologne, or aftershave that is heavily scented or which may remind others of their parents or grandparents. Don't stand out in terms of fashion. Remember, you want your accomplishments to make you stand out, not your appearance. Don't address your age directly. Just enforce your value and what you would bring to the company. At the start of this video, we went over some negative stereotypes about mature workers, but there are also many positive stereotypes, such as being dedicated, punctual, honest, loyal, and being proud of their job. Many people also consider mature workers to have strong communication skills, a good work ethic, and networking skills. With the tips presented in this video, you should be able to reinforce these positive stereotypes and diminish the negative ones. If you're looking for more help, here are a few resources you can visit for more advice on applying for jobs as a mature worker. All of these links will be provided in the description box below, along with links to our other videos and contact information for the career coaches at WorkSource Spokane. Thank you for watching this virtual workshop. If you have any questions about this course's content, please email the WorkSource Spokane workshop team at esdwsspokaneworkshopteam@esd.wa.gov.